You feel it now, don't you? A new war. One not born of bitterness nor founded on revenge. The Long War. That's from Abaddon the Despoiler, the Sons of Horus series. This is it. This is the capstone. This is the jewel in the crown of the hashtag Return to Istvan project. And it marks the culmination of 2 years of planning and painting and building a community around this shared interest of Book 1 of the early Horus Heresy. And let's face it, it also marks the culmination of 2 years of stress. Now, at the time of recording this, the UK is starting to lift restrictions from the COVID-19 pandemic. And it feels like ending this project when this looks like it's all coming to an end feels fitting. So when you collect anything, it almost becomes if you collect for long enough, you look back at armies, you look back at your miniatures, and they remind you of the times which you collected them. So my old Praetorian army, the Imperial Guard with the pith helmets, it reminds me of listening to Savage Garden when I was doing my GCSEs and painting them. And this army is no different. It will be a permanent reminder of the pandemic and the upheaval of the time, the trauma, and I'd like to think some of the achievements as well. So let's start at the start. 23rd of March 2020, the British people watched as our Prime Minister gave a statement to the country. PM, stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives. I mean, since that point, I remember thinking very distinctly, like, is this really happening? It felt unreal, you know. This is the kind of thing you see in movies. I mean, from that statement onward, the world's kind of felt one step removed from reality. Social distancing, being confined to your home. It's felt like I've been watching myself live through this experience in the third person. A mandatory lockdown. Weird. Okay, cool. Chance to get some hardcore hobby done, right? Time to write that screenplay. Time to write that book. That one book that's in all of us. Time to learn a new language. Podcast. Spend more time with family. Problem with living through a pandemic is that, well, it's quite traumatic. It doesn't leave much room for fun. I've had friends lose jobs. I've had friends become sick. My wife is a nurse and she's had to bear the brunt, and she's lost co-workers, died through this. Hell, I've suffered long-term COVID symptoms, and it's only very recently I've started to feel strong enough to not take painkillers every couple of hours. It's no joke. This thing, it's I mean, I'm trying to run a small business on top of it all. Just heaps more pressure onto stress points that just aren't able to manage. It's an unusual time that placed unusual stresses on us. And we've seen a lot of upheaval. Well, what's this got to do with Abaddon? Well, hobby is partly an escape from reality. It's a way to conceptualize. And hell, it's even a way to escape the reality of the world. And this project helped a community of what I like to think are like-minded modelers create something. We started at the outset of the pandemic thinking we want to do something together collectively. And that nostalgia twang hit. We all have a few armies locked up, and one of my things that I wanted to do in the hobby was to collect a Justarian army spearheaded by Abaddon. So that's the hashtag Return to Istvan. That's how it was spawned. Through an unusual circumstance, under pressure, with a hint of nostalgia. And now, when you search Instagram or other social media, hashtag Return to Istvan, it spawned at least half a dozen fully painted armies. And hell, there's a charity event in the UK that's already raised at least £1,500 for diabetes research. All from dreaming about little toy soldiers. Life is really strange. It's really goddamn strange. But, okay, enough enough talking around the subject. Let's talk about the subject. The model itself. Okay, so Abaddon, he represents the elite first company of the Justarian. So these were the spear tip. These were Horus's personal guard, his personal army, his elite of the elite of the elite, spearheaded by the first company captain. And it's one of those armies that you read about in the fiction and you mentally stow away one day to create an army out of. I mean, how many times have you read a novel or a novella or a story or seen a battle report or just something that's inspired you to start a new army? Well, this entire project for me has been a love letter to the heresy. The community, some of my best friends that I know within the hobby have come from this community. Some of the most talented and outrageously talented people have come from a Horus Heresy background. The sculptors, like Simon Egan, who I'll keep fawning over during the course of this video, I'm sorry, but I'm an avowed addict of anything that man produces. And the other unbelievably talented students that they've had that have left Forge World, or some are still there, but you can see they've gone on to become the biggest miniature manufacturers in the world, or the biggest miniature painters in the world, all from this kernel, this core, this idea. We've seen painters win, well, hell, we've seen painters develop careers off the back of it. Writers, they've created something so special that's stuck with all of us. I mean, Alan Bly's vision for bringing the heresy into some manner of grounding is well, others have put it far more eloquently than me, and closer to him, the impact that man has had on their lives. It's been a real privilege to be a part of. So the colour key for this project. It's a change from the usual. Whenever I approach a project, I like to do something new. I like to expand my skill base. I want to try something in order for me not to become stale. So what did I do for this? Well, very recently, in the past 2 years, I've developed a new art crush. Patrick J. Jones. I'm absolutely obsessed by his colour choices and the use of green to enhance the depth of his pieces. He'll put an undersketch in I guess reddish tones, and then he'll glaze over the top, all with oil, with green, and it just transforms the entire image. I wanted to do something similar for this project. So the skin tone, for example, it builds up from a base of English uniform and is highlighted with pastel greens. Every aspect of the miniature has some manner of green shade applied, and that does include the shoulder pad. Looking at the colour palette and how they worked on the miniature has been an unusual experience, because when I've dived into it, there's something in the hindbrain that's kind of pulled me back. Abaddon, as a character, he's changed many times during the course of his life. And I wonder, writing this, it occurred to me, is that his key trait as a leader? So he has a really big sword that can cut reality in half. He has this claw that murdered an angel and crippled a god. He has the Mark of Chaos Ascendant, which even Horus didn't get. He's a pretty beastly fellow. But is the thing that really differentiates him from his competitors is his ability to change, his ability to adapt to his circumstances. He changed from mortal to Astartes, Lunar Wolf to Sons of Horus, First Captain to the War Master of Chaos. The ability to change, the ability to adapt to your circumstances. I wonder why that is relevant when we look through the time that we've all lived through. So this is his depiction of Istvan III, full of fury and burning righteousness in his father's cause. The first captain of the First Legion, if in name then deed. If not in name, then deed. At this point, he is secure in his worldview. Horus is Lord. Whatever course of action he takes must be the correct one, because he is completely bought into this cult of personality surrounding the Primarch. During the course of the heresy, during the course of the Black Library books, you start to see his worldview change. His perception of how the war is waged, his perception of his father, and how he distances himself from the methods employed by Horus during the siege. The ability to change, the ability to adapt to his circumstances. So each piece of the miniature was glazed with green, including the red and the skin of his shoulder pad. This kept the piece coherent, and it kept it coherent across the entire range of miniatures that I've painted. The magenta underglow was the only point of separation from this and the other Justarian, as well as the level of detailing that this miniature received. The magenta underglow was used to contrast the green. So when you look at the colour wheel, magenta sits on the opposite side to green, and that way I can drag more attention to that face, to that focal point where I want to drag it. The sword was painted in a HTMM technique, so that's my rather bundling effort to say that this is done using non-metallic techniques but with a true metallic inflection. So you get all that nice reflection point through a non-metallic, but when you revolve it, you can see the metallic pigment shine from different surfaces. And it would be remiss of me not to praise the sculpt again at this point. So Simon Egan, he is a master of his trade. There are so many little details, little inflections of character that just feel alive when you paint it. You can tell that this has been hand sculpted. I'm an avowed addict of his work, like I said, and I hope I was able to at least partially realise his grimdark aesthetic in the paint job. So there he is, Abaddon, Lord of the Sons of Horus, at this point depicted during the massacre at Isfahan III. A being of endurance, vision, and change. A marker in time for the most unusual of times that we've all lived through. If you'd like to see the rest of the Return to Isfahan project, you can find them by just typing into Google #Return to Isfahan. They're all hosted on my website, lil'legendstudios.com. And if you'd like to see a full 4K tutorial on how this piece and the other Sons of Horus pieces were painted, please see the description below, and there should be links. And that is it for the Sons of Horus project. Project complete, all done. I'll have army photos up over the next few weeks, and I'll make a video as well for YouTube. But this closing doors kind of left me wistful. What projects should I develop next? I'm left with a few. I'm going through the stages of research at the moment. I'm bringing out all the books I feel would inspire me, and seeing if something sticks. Maybe something for 40k. I haven't developed a 40k army in forever for myself. AOS, maybe. The miniature range just goes from strength to strength, and as painterly pieces, you can ask for a better range. A break from the norm, a fresh challenge, who knows? But I'll leave it there. I'll leave you looking at images of Abaddon.